Welcome to this session by Masayuki about is there a role for Debian in the post-open source era.
Yes, thank you very much. I have some trouble to sharing the window. Oh, no. I think now we are seeing the screen, right? I'm not sure. Okay, anyway, I'm Masayuki Hatta. I'm a Debian developer for like 20 years. And today I'd like to talk about thing. Is there a role for Debian in the post-open source era? And, so sorry, this is old slide. Gosh. I'm interested in the thing that what is free or open, or who defined it, and why is it accepted. These days, we tend to take it granted now, but free open concepts created by some people with some assumption. And how the concept is generated. What happened? Korean War or something? Okay. Oh, all right. And then, okay, so what I was talking. There have been several key actors in the FLOSS world, and each had its own sources of influence. I mean, so those actors, generated the concept. And there were often conflicts resolved by negotiation or fights. Like GPL version 3 discussion was actually all about what is free, in a free. So in FSF sense, source code, SASA's use of free software is not acceptable, something like that. And also, non-technical, policy or legal influence is largely supported by technical significance, which means if you are not influential in any technical way, you will be just ignored. And so the key actors, as far as I know, is someone like Linus and his men, because their technical significance is the popularity of Linux kernel. And also FSF has been influential, but that's because they are, they have some kind of authority. I think FSF was influential because of GNU software, the popularity of GNU software, or in a way, because Linux kernel is GPL'd, so in a way, Linux kernel. And also OSI, Open Source Initiative, have some kind of influence. And then what is Debian? I think Debian's source of power has been being a gatekeeper. Debian, in a way, controls software distribution and diffusion. A number of software actually changed their licenses to get them into Debian archive. Since binary distribution was handier than source distribution then. Now, the things are a bit different, but at that time, getting your software into Debian is kind of crucial for getting attention. So it was crucial for developers to get their software into Debian. So they have to conform Debian's rules. And also, Debian takes on open source, not just Debian for Debian, but individual software quality assurances. That was enabled by the upstream Debian maintenance dual system, because so there is the upstream authors, and also we have Debian maintenance, and these two works closely but separately. So Debian has not been just a project whose goal was to create an OS operating system, but actually Debian is supposed to be an advocate or a guardian, if I say, or free software or open source concept. So Debian was sometimes in a position to make and enforce rules. Maybe enforce is a little bit too strong, but as I said, something like 10 years ago, people have to get their software into Debian because Debian distributes softwares. Anyway, so enforce rules in the form of license assessment and guidelines. So you might remember there are lots of weird licenses or weird things. And you have to send postcard to the author if you want to use software or something like that. And they can't do that because DFSG doesn't allow. And they want their software entering into Debian archive. So I think Debian has been quite unique since it is a community effort. So users' interests are directly reflected. And actually, it implies user equal developer's assumption. I think it's not really talked, but this user equal developer's assumption is kind of important for understanding open source ecosystem or free software ecosystem. Because so we, for example, no warranty is usually asserted by open source licenses because we can assume users equal developers. So if you want to use this software free, you have to take care of it by yourself. So that's the reason we can say no warranty or So user equal developer assumption is quite important. So non-technically, Debian's influence is with Debian social contract or Debian DFSG. Actually, DFSG became open source definition. So open source, in a way, is defined by Debian's own guideline. And it's not changed much since 1998. But I think recently the things has changed. More and more software is distributed directly, not from Debian. Maybe from GitHub or GitLab, maybe, or their own websites or Android App Store or something like that. Maybe they are in Debian format, Deb format, but most softwares are distributed directly. And also, as you know, SaaS or web service is much more common. And source distribution, not binary or object code distribution. Source code distribution is more common since because the web service is so successful. Those source code based, interpreter based languages are now in very common. So licenses, controls by licenses or guidelines have become somewhat meaningless. And I might say the source code was precious in those days, but now we have tons of source codes in GitHub or everywhere. So source code, I can say, the value of source code is not as much as like 10 years ago, and instead data is relatively scarce, so the value of data is going up. So I think it's important. This is kind of important because we are now everybody is talking about AI, and also we are talking about open source AI, and the data is really important. And maybe some of you might say differently, but I think these days FLOSS is not really a community effort anymore. Like Linux kernel, only 15% of source code is written by individual contributors, and most of them are contributed by big companies, from big companies. So user equal developers assumption is no more. I mean, there are lots of free riders. So we have really strong big tech influence. And also, some of you know this cartoon. So the important thing is one small piece of software is actually self-funded and maintained by really small group of people without any pay or something. It's called Nebraska problem because of this cartoon. Insufficient resources are allocated to those who develop critical software, and small developers have hard time making money. And also, small things can overturn the whole internet. It's partly because no QA from Debian anymore. So people can directly get software without any QA. And as I said, when user equal developer assumption was working, we can say like no warranty or your own responsibility or something. But these days there are so many users, and they are not developers. So maybe no warranty excuse will not work. So I think situation around FLOSS and underlying conditions have been changed, especially quite rapidly these days, like 2 or 3 years. As I said, the definition of open source or open or free has been remarkably stable for like past 20 years. But these like recent 2 or 3 years, things changed quite rapidly. I'm old-fashioned, so I'm not really in favor of solving social problems with software licenses or guidelines, but maybe we need to change the definition of open or free. That's my message. And so now we have several new ideas, or maybe old ideas, which was rejected last time, but now maybe it's relevant. As some of you might know, last year there was some kind of controversy about business source licenses, like some open source database developers think they are not enoughly compensated by their users, including Amazon or those big techs. So they try to change their licensing. So business source license is not, traditionally speaking, it's not open source licenses, but they tried to change. And also now discussion about open source AI definition is going on, and So as you might know, the AI's responsibility or warranty or something like that is very important. And so this new definition this open source API definition is now drafted by open source initiative, but it might contain non-DFSG conformant clauses. And also Bruce Perens, former Debian project leader, and actually he was one of the architects of open source concept, recently introduced his idea of post-open. Today, he will talk about this new idea later. So, as I said, DFSG or OST has been very stable for the last 20 years, and it's really good. But in this, atomized, so there's no strong voices like Debian or FSF something, and also big tech lead open source world reality. Maybe we need some new ideas. New definition of free or open, and Debian might be able to lead this kind of discussion, and it might lead to changing DFSG. I should say I myself, I don't have a concrete idea yet, but I appreciate if we can discuss candidly about new idea or new definition of open, free, or maybe new idea of DFSG. Ooh. Okay, third Korean War? Fourth Korean? Anyway, okay. Yeah, just thought. Okay, so now my talk is over. So now floor is yours, Bruce. Can you can you hear me?
Okay. So
we can
stop making that Windows sound.
Yeah. All right, but we can hear you, but we don't see your slide yet. So okay, wait a minute.
So I'll put up my slide now.
Okay.
And
okay, you send me an email, right?
I did indeed,
okay.
But you might actually see this. Give me a minute.
Oh, I don't want to show my email list.
Switching to it.
Okay. Oh,
okay,
boy.
so do you
it's
see
not
it?
a very good idea. Okay.
Maybe check the Jitsi, please.
Check Jitsi. He's doing it.
Yeah. Okay. How about that?
Yeah, Hatta, can you see the slides, or are you putting up your own?
It's still a blank screen.
Yeah, it's still blank.
Still a blank screen. That is too bad. I'm going to start talking.
Okay. I see.
Yeah,
we
okay.
see your slide now. So tell me, next or something. Okay.
Okay, that's great. So we're on the title slide now
Yep.
with my email on it.
All right.
And I'm very glad to talk with you all. I'm Bruce Perens. I am the second Debian project leader after Ian Murdoch, and probably best known these days for starting all of this open source stuff. Rather than what we used to call it, which is free software, they actually really mean the same thing. And we say open source as a way of selling the free software concept to business people. Okay, this is slide 2 now. It says about post-open. So for a while now, I've been working on post-open, a proposed successor paradigm to open source. And you can read about that at postopen.org.
Previous slide. Okay. Sorry.
Okay, and the goal is to pay developers and fix the bad power differential between developers and wealthy corporate users. So right now, the wealthy corporate users have all the power, and we make the software, which I think is upside down. Okay, this is slide number 3.
Okay.
Post-open helps the people we should be helping, which are individuals and small companies, and it requires payment from companies with more than 5 million US dollars per year revenue. And payment allows the use of all the post-open software, not just one program. So right now with open source, we run what I call the world's best corporate welfare program. We develop software for big companies to use. They're having problems because we seriously can't afford to maintain it for them. And that resulted in things like the XZ exploit. So I decided it was time to fix this. So Post-Open will collect money, and funds that are collected will be apportioned to the developers. That means that they will be divided up and given to the developers based on paid user reports of what they're using. So they submit a machine-readable support once a year of what software they're using. And then we measure the developer contributions from Git repositories. And we decide from that what to pay developers. Now, of course, not everyone's work can be measured by lines of code. And there are some people who might have to account for their time. So this won't be quite as simple as I would like. One other thing that I feel open source has really failed at is helping the common person. And by the common person, I mean someone who isn't a software specialist. And by the way, the slide should say helping the common person. So the common person is someone who isn't a software specialist. They mostly use open source as infrastructure to proprietary software, and they may not even know that they ever use open source. They may not know what open source is. And there are a few outliers that really have common people using them, like LibreOffice and Mozilla. So what's different about LibreOffice and Mozilla? One thing is that they have paid developers. Okay, next slide, it should say the motivation problem. So open source developers mostly write software for themselves and people like them. Getting paid seems to be a sufficient motivator for developers to write software for the common person. Okay, next slide, it says Post-Open protects open source. The Post-Open zero-cost license, which you can see on postopen.org, makes clear that Post-Open is not open source and prohibits misuse of the name open source to describe Post-Open. That's because open source is a valuable brand. It's meant the same thing for 27 years now, and it should continue to mean exactly that. Now, the open source initiative may dilute the open source brand with their open source AI license. That's not under my control or probably yours. I think it's unfortunate because I think that the open source definition actually applies perfectly well to AI, but it applies to several pieces separately. It applies to the software underpinning of the large language model, and then separately to the training model, that is the input to the large language model, even if that input is constantly changing. And then essentially what comes out of that, what we would consider the binary, is the large language model. So I kind of think that an open source AI license is actually not necessary. But I haven't written anything about that, and I really should. Post-Open has what I feel is a better way of handling AI. It is there for you to read in the Post-Open zero-cost license. So where would the Post-Open developers come from. Existing open source software can be dual licensed post-open. So you take your current license, you have to get an agreement with your developers, and I actually have a process for that if you're interested in doing so. And then you have an open source program that you can use either under its open source license or the post-open license. Users who pay for post-open then must also pay for the dual licensed open source program. If it has post-open license, they have to use that one. They're already paying for post-open, so they don't mind. Open source projects would start to make money. Not a bad thing. So where do the paid users come from? Well, I don't kid myself that IBM is going to join this right away or ever. So not the existing big companies. Small companies would start with the post-open zero-cost license and become paid users as they grow. So now we're on the post-open progress slide. There is a post-open zero-cost license which just went into lawyer review. So we have a law firm. I'm actually about to announce their name. I have to talk with their marketing people first. But they have contributed hours of their work to reviewing post-open. There is a paid contract for the over $5 million companies, which is very new. So it may change significantly. These are both on the postopen.org website. I just started writing the operating agreement for the programmers. There will be an operating agreement that all of the programmers join into. It does things like allowing post-open to enforce for them and discussing how they make money. And the apportionment process, the process of collecting money and giving the money to programmers, is only ideas so far. I have not written down the process. So these are things that I have yet to work on. Next slide says, how does Debian participate? So obviously, it's not yet possible to make a distribution out of all post-open licensed software. And that could take a very long time. Debian's compilation copyright, that is the copyright not on the individual programs, but on the way that Debian puts them all together, could possibly be dual licensed as post-open, while the individual software packages would mostly remain under their present licenses. And that would start to make some income for Debian. So if post-open works, and this might not work, it's a very big job. It's a very big challenge to get developers on board. It's a big challenge to get users on board. But if it works, the potential to get paid might be a sufficient incentive for the development of lots of new software. And we are on the slide that says if post-open works. Debian and Linux are based on the Unix API from 1970. It really is time to move on. But operating systems research has mostly stagnated. Maybe if people start getting paid for making software that's post-open, that's very much like open source with a somewhat different paradigm, maybe we can get operating systems research back in gear again. So that's all for the slides. I'm going to go back on my camera. And, okay, so, hello, camera.
Yeah, still we can see your face. Yeah, we could see your slides,
right.
But yeah.
Yeah, okay. So are there any questions? And it might be best to put them in the chat for me.
Okay, so the presentation from me and Bruce is over, and now we have Q&A session. Thank you very much, Bruce, by the way.
Thank you.
I think microphone is needed. Yeah, now for
the whole post-open source discussion of how it should work in terms of financials looks very much US specific to me. And one of the strengths of the current open source is that it has international value. It really makes borders not exist for the purpose of software distribution for the users and developers of software. It would be something that I would definitely not want to lose. Thank you.
Hi. So, yeah, not everybody will join in. And I was very careful in developing post-open to make sure that it would not hurt open source. So please go on with open source if that is your preference.
Hello, Bruce. This is Hector. Thank you for working on this. I really appreciate it. I've been thinking about this also, and I see also risks on the legal side coming. Like if you start getting income, then you might be legally liable for your activities. And there are other areas where money is not the driver for development, but there is like some development that happens because there is some power of forcing people to work on the software without any economical incentive. So I don't know if you consider this, but I mean, I think the problem is quite complex.
Yeah, this is really hard. It has a lot more moving than open source. From a liability perspective, the post-open zero-cost license, which is the license that everyone comes in with, and the paid license includes that by reference, so it has the same terms. The post-open zero-cost license both disclaims warranties and requires the licensee to indemnify the developer and the post-open administration. And because of that indemnification, we have less liability than we have with open source today. There are potential legal issues, especially as national governments put more requirements on software that is open source or like open source. And that's why we have lawyers. And we're looking at this very carefully. If we were very successful, antitrust would potentially be a problem. And antitrust is just when there's one big company that owns an entire market. But we would be incredibly lucky if that became a problem.
Okay, thank you. A follow-up question or comment is about the OS, operating systems research and development. Seems like a trend of getting Androidizations, like all the OSs need to look like an Android. And even this is probably going into the data center with immutable file systems, transactional updates, and so on. So this is a trend that is already happening. Not sure if this is a threat or not, or if we can do something there, but that's, yeah, a comment.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to say about that yet. But please feel free to follow up with me offline. Go on.
Bruce, where does the post-open license leave companies who make modifications to the software that they are buying a license for, possibly even redistributing those modifications themselves? Does the license allow them to do that? What's the impact of them doing that redistribution will they also see a cut of the income from other places because of their contributions to the original project?
So if you're a company that distributes a product based on post-open, you also have to join the paid license. So that makes sure that the developers get something from your product. Now, you can also become a post-open developer, and that means you join the operating agreement with the other developers. And if that happened, you would potentially be releasing post-open software, and other companies would be using it, including in products, and you would potentially make income from that. So that is possible. It is possible for a company to be a participant in post-open, but it is not possible for them to be a voter, because I want control to rest in the developer's hands rather than to sit with large corporations, which is what happens now. If you look, for example, at the Linux Foundation, it's controlled all by very large corporations, and they have SUS, is the token small company. And so as far as embedded systems and software as a service, which are two places where we have problems right now, a paid customer is able to make private modifications. So they could potentially have them in their embedded system. The reason I put that in is that we have terrible, terrible problems enforcing GPL, and I figure, if they really want to do that, they should give us money. However, if you make a private modification, you are not allowed to have a gated community. That means you're not allowed to set up a community of other companies or customers exclusively for sharing that modification. One company that did that was Open Source Security, who rather famously sued me. So I would suggest that you look at the post-open zero-cost license, and if there's anything you don't like, please take it up with me. I'm still working on this, and I really need people's opinions.
Anything else? We still have 5 minutes or something. All right.
If there are no further questions, a very warm thank you to both Bruce and Masayuki for this session. Thank you for attending.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. See you later.